Good evening, Broncos country. We are live. But before we get started with tonight's episode, we want to make sure we have all of our platforms included. All right, I see green check marks across the board. We are good. Welcoming everyone to another installment of the Orange and Blue View. I am one of your hosts, Ron White. On that side of me, you know him, you love him, my co-host, Mr. Dylan Vaughn Arts. Dylan, how are you doing today on this divisional divisional Sunday?
Be better with the Chiefs loss, right before we have to hop on, but that's kind of how I saw the game going either way. But other than that, I'm doing fantastic.
Yeah, you know, it's another Chiefs victory. It's the Texans try to put up a good fight, but ultimately, that Mahomes, Kelsey, Reed, um, it's tough to overcome. I know there were a few calls in the game that were just very questionable from the refs. Those rough and passer calls, they were just terrible. They were just terrible. But hopefully, something is done about that. But we'll see. But yeah, moving on to the next game. But yeah, we're here to talk Broncos. Broncos. Last weekend it wasn't the best. Up in Western New York when the Broncos had to go up there, but at least it was good, for the team to make the playoffs, Dylan, to kind of see what it's like. This is probably the first playoff game for a lot of them on the squad, so at least they were able to kind of get kind of the feeling of a playoff game kind of under their belt. But yeah, it was quite a blowout. I mean, I know that opening drive, you're like, okay, cool, that
Here we
bomb,
go.
Detroit Franklin, cool, we're good. And then the Bills just did Bills things. Josh Allen, James Cook, and the rest was history. But it is what it is. So let's see who all is in the chat tonight. We got Mr. David Malcolrath coming in. Thank you, David. It's always good to see you, my guy. Thank you for tuning in. He says, "Good evening, Broncos country." Good evening to you too, sir. Hopefully you are doing well on this nice Saturday. And we got Bobby Robbie's coming in. Thank you. Says, "What's up, Dylan, Ron, Scott, and Broncos country?" What's up with you, Bobby Robbie's? Hopefully you are doing well on Divisional Saturday. It's good to see you pop in. And then we also have Mr. Roy Osborne, familiar name from Facebook. Thank you, Roy. It's good to see you as well, my guy. He says, "Folks, evening, Ron and Dylan. Texas kept it close at times." Yes, Roy. Texas defense was balling. They were balling. I mean, Will Anderson, Daniil Hunter, they were getting after it. But the Chiefs just know how to win. And it wasn't the best game from Mahomes, but whenever you have Travis Kelsey just getting wide open, you know, it's it's kind of good night, Irene. And what the other things that the Chiefs do well kind of come into play as well, right? The defense. Karloftis and Chanel, Bolton. That's a nice trio there, and also special teams play near the end. So that the Chiefs just know how to win. But yeah, the Texans did put up a good fight.
Yeah, D'Amico's got that team coached up pretty well, and obviously they suffered some big injuries at wide receiver with Tank Dell going out late in the season and Stephon Diggs as well. But and they put up a fight there for a while, but they were just outgunned. They don't have as much experience as the Chiefs do, and Andy Reid is the better head coach to this point. So kind of how I saw the game going. But yeah, at least it was a little more entertaining than the last weekend.
Yeah, it wasn't like any ridiculous blowouts like wild card. Because I think the only good wild card game was the Commanders and the Bucks.
Oh yeah.
Um, but yeah, you see these, you kind of see parity, more parity as the divisional game and the championship games come around. So it's all good. But again, Roy, thank you for coming in. We appreciate you, my guy. And then Rodney Garcia coming in. Thank you, Rodney. Says, "Good evening, Ron and Dylan in Broncos country. I think we could have done better than Houston in giving the Chiefs their loss. Well, yeah, I mean, our head coach seems to think so. In the end of the season presser, that's what he alluded to. That if the Broncos were able to make it past Buffalo, he felt confident that they could have gone into Arrowhead and you know put up a good fight and possibly even win that game. I agree with him. I think Dylan, I do think that the Broncos match up with the Chiefs very well. You saw it in the first matchup of the season. If it wasn't for that blocked, uh, that blocked extra point or field goal, I think it was a field goal, that blocked field goal, then you know, we come away with the victory. We come away sweeping the Chiefs. Um, and so you see kind of how that team compares with the Broncos team. So I do agree, Rodney, that if the Broncos were able to go up an Arrowhead today, just given how the Chiefs play on offense, because I mean you and I were talking about it, Dylan, that Mahomes didn't have the best game, but I just feel as though that Houston just didn't really have an answer for Kelsey, because the only receiver that Chiefs had that caught a pass, I believe, was Xavier Worthy.
Yeah.
So Kelsey was the factor here. And, I think they were missing tackles on Kelsey, trying to bring him down. He just kept going. So, but I do think, given how the Broncos defense is constructed with how the Chiefs play on more dink and dunk type offense now, the matchup would have been a lot better.
Definitely. I think the Broncos would have been much more prepared and confident playing the Chiefs for the third time this season. Obviously, that only be the second time against their starters, but that's just a matchup I liked much more. I wanted, as crazy as it seems, probably outside of Broncos country, people who are paying attention to Denver, it's a very favorable matchup. But obviously, you still got to get past Buffalo, who was very unfavorable, much like the Ravens game. They kind of just did what they wanted. They ran the ball until you made Josh Allen throw, and they didn't have to do too much and really exposed the linebacking core with their bad tackling, and then even like running the ball at Nick Bonito, which has been kind of his deficiency. The ground game, they just couldn't stop it, so they'll be looking to beef up the defensive line a little bit there. But yeah, absolutely, I think the Broncos could have made a much better game of it than Houston against the Chiefs there.
Yeah. Yes, most definitely, most definitely. Again, Rodney, thank you for coming in. And Rodney Osborne coming back in. Thank you. Says we were just outclassed all in all with Buffalo. And you're right on, Roy. Um, it was, just a coaching masterpiece, if you will, by Sean McDermott. All phases came to play for Buffalo. And you also saw the level of the talent disparity, if you will, Dylan, of what the Bills have. And again, the Bills, as far as receiving name out there, I mean, they're not really household names, but they know how to play ball. Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, that tight end duel with Knox and Kincaid. They just know they're just talented. They know how to get open, and Josh Allen can find them. And then, but you also have, I think, what helped the Bills out a lot here as well, Roy, is that running game for Buffalo really started to just wear the defense of the Broncos down. When James Cook was just popping 6 and 7 yards a carry, then you also had Ty Johnson in there. It was just making the defense for the Broncos tired. And it's hard to just wear down when they can't really do much. But they kept it close at halftime. Near halftime, if Will Lutz makes that field goal, then we would, could have kept it a little bit closer and maybe swung momentum going into. But yeah, I just feel as though you really kind of saw how the teams are constructed and some of the position group talent deficiencies with Buffalo and with the Broncos kind of come out in the second half.
Absolutely. And, you can't really win a game when you're giving up, I believe it was 5 drives of 5+ minutes, and the defense absolutely just couldn't get them off the field. I know that a lot of people, but the offense didn't really do anything, but I mean, how they didn't get many opportunities. It reminds me kind of Russell Wilson's first year, that week 1 against the Raiders. I think each team
Mhm.
possessed the ball 5 times, 4 times, like something outrageous like that. And you just can't expect to beat a team letting the Bills rip off like just several plays every drive. Like I said, 5+ minutes every time. Like you can't get them off the field. I mean, you're just not going to give your offense a chance, no matter how young they are. They did make plays on that first drive, made plays right before half, and just not giving them enough chances to go and win the game. So hopefully that'll change. It was nice to see the young talent get to a playoff game, like you mentioned earlier on, just to see look across the line at the Bills offense, the Bills defense, and be like, hey, we want to be that someday. We want to be that next year, and that's what we want to build towards. So, all in all, still a great learning experience about wins and learns, as I was saying all throughout the offseason. Not about wins and losses, about wins and learns.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Bills finished with a 23-minute edge in time of possession. So they held the ball for more than 42 minutes. So, time possession, converting those third downs. Well, when they even got the third downs, because I don't think there were many third downs there for the Bills. Yeah, you're not going to win games that way. But again, you know, good season for the Broncos. And, hopefully going into this off season, if they, draft some good talent, look in free agency, then the league will no longer look at them as underdogs. And speaking of underdogs, underdog is the place to play if you're a sports fan looking to win money while watching sports. Join over 5 million fans who are already playing on Underdog. With their pick'em game, you can win money by making entries with your favorite players. Compete against other players just by selecting higher or lower on 2 or more player stats, and you can win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn every touchdown into a win with Underdog.
With their champs game, you could win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on player stats like passing yards, interceptions, touchdowns, and much more. Every dog deserves a second chance, and with Underdog Rescues, you can get your money back and receive a promo if an early injury causes your entry to lose.
So download the Underdog app today and use code MHuddle to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Again, download the Underdog app today and use our code MHuddle to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Every player, every touchdown, just select higher or lower on Underdog.
You must be 18 plus, 19 plus Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY.
All right. So now, speaking of how the Broncos can upgrade talent for the next season, um, Dylan, I want to start with you to kind of give your fair assessment of the team and kind of look at some of these position groups as far as where the Broncos can use some help. So, I guess where do you want to start? Like, what's your first position group that the Broncos desperately need to upgrade?
I'm just going to start off about the tight end position because Bo Nix obviously was lacking reliable receivers, whether it was the wide receiver room with many drops we saw in that game, the wild card game, and the tight end position was absolutely abysmal. He doesn't have a security blanket, right? Ron, if you were to guess higher or lower, how many yards did the 3 top tight ends have? We're going to set at 500. Did they have higher or lower?
Lower.
Yep. They had 455 yards and 5 touchdowns from the tight end position. That's Adam Troutman, Lucas Kroll, and Nate Adkins. I remember saying, hey, maybe pump the brakes on the Lucas Kroll hype. Even though there was just a little, I think Sean made like one offhand comment and then it kind of got out of proportion. And, the fans, they want to be optimistic. Obviously, there wasn't much to talk about at the tight end position. So any kind of crumb you get, I totally get that. But that kind of came out on the stat sheet. Lucas Kroll didn't get much playing time. And when Adam Troutman and a toolsy fullback tight end, Nate Adkins, are getting more touches than you, not a great sign. Obviously, there's a lot of great options in the draft this year. One in free agency, Juwan James, or what's his?
Juwan Johnson.
Juwan Johnson, that's right. Very
From the
familiar
Saints.
with Sean Payton, come from the Saints. But then you also have, as I mentioned, the draft guys. You got Tyler Warren, Colson Loveland. There's a guy I would like to get a little later in the draft, Aronde Gadsden from Syracuse. I think he would be a great fit Denver as well. But yeah, tight end, you absolutely need to get a reliable weapon for Bo Nix, whether it's at wide receiver, whether it's at tight end. And I feel at tight end they are hurting a little more in that area.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, and let's kind of allude to that with Kevin's question here. Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, or wait for Mason Taylor in a later round. Kevin, it really depends on who's there at 20. I think right now, I think before Penn State made their little run, it was Colston before Tyler Warren. So Colston Loveland was probably looked at as the first tight end in the draft. But now, after Tyler Warren's performance over the past 2 playoff games, his draft stock has risen tremendously. So I would dare to say that maybe some boards have him being the first one taken. I think for me, my preference, my order of ranking is Warren first, Loveland second. And then I would say Mason Taylor is probably like 4th or 5th. I like Gunnar Helm as well out of Texas. He'd probably be 3rd for me. But if I'm right there picking at 20, Kevin, and if both Warren and Loveland are there, I'm going Warren. If Warren's already taken, if Loveland's there, I'm going Loveland. And if both are gone, yeah, you probably look at maybe a trade back, maybe you look at another premium position, and then you try to target that in that second round with Mason Taylor, because I like Mason Taylor. I do like Mason Taylor. I think he's good. Or maybe even target like a Gunnar Helm in the second round. And you mentioned a good one as well, Dylan. Aronde Gaskin out of Syracuse. I think he'll probably be there, even late, sometime in the 3rd round. So yeah, I would kind of go that direction, Kevin.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, I think Warren's probably my number one guy as well. I do see either Warren or Loveland fitting great in this offense. Regardless, I think they didn't really have that joker weapon like Greg Dulcich was supposed to be at the tight end position, right?
Yep.
And they tried to fit little Jordan Humphrey in that role. And obviously that didn't work out very great. So if you can get a dynamic pass catcher, whether it be Warren, Loveland, even Mason Taylor, Sean Payton wants to use a tight end, and he wants to use him in these spots where he's going to go out and block or be a big slot, right? So either way, I'd be happy with all these options, but definitely Warren, that dude's a dog, man. I'd be really excited to have him here in Denver and have a true weapon at tight end for the first time in forever.
Yeah, and I think with this one, Kevin and Dylan, I see both ends where a lot of the draft nicks are looking at Warren as just that overall, that complete tight end. He can block. He's a pass catcher. He can actually act as quarterback and throw it. Kind of, Sean's version of a Taysom Hill. That would be great. But I think for me, I'm just looking at, again, Warren, that I'm still having Warren as my number one. Don't get it wrong. But even if you take Loveland just gets open and snatches the ball. And just having another receiver just on the field, down the seams, I think that's really all Broncos fans would want too.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of having that big playability, because you alluded to it, Dylan, where in the Bills game, there were so many passes that were dropped. Sutton dropping a pass, Vele dropping a. You're just like, it has to have someone else that has sure hands to catch the ball. So, again, love Warren, still my number one, but I'm not, I wouldn't be mad and if Loveland is, and Loveland can block as well. Love is a more than capable blocker. But I just want to put that out there that, there was sure hands. I think Loveland does definitely fit the bill for that. All right. Thank you, Kevin. So for me, my position of need, running back. The running back position. So it's embarrassing, Dylan, that the last time that the Broncos had a 100-yard rusher was January 8th of 2023. And that was Latavius Murray putting up 103 yards in that regular season finale against the Chargers.
Wow.
So, that's glaring stat alone shows you how that need is for running back. And even in the Bills game, Dylan, I mean, the Broncos ran, I think, 12 run plays? There was like 8 in the first half and like 4 in the second half. And they're probably averaging 3 or 4 yards a carry, not much. So you see the need, and it's not the line, guys. We know the offensive line is more than capable. They're top the leagues when it comes to run blocking. It's the talent you have at running back. And I think that's a position that you probably double up on, Dylan, minimum. You double up in the draft, or you get a free agent and then you draft one. But we know Javante's gone. And then you see flashes from Jaleel. You like what you see, but you're always kind of wishing for more from Jaleel. And then Estime, I still think there's some reservations from Sean Payton on Estime, especially making him inactive in the Bills game. So yeah, you have to figure out the running back position, just because there's just no non-existent running game at all. And I think in the free agent pool, I mean, you have a few players here that you maybe can get behind and Kathy mentions here Hampton, Johnson, Tootin, and Sampson. So yeah, free agent running backs, and I'll get to that, Kathy. Thank you for coming in with that. You got Aaron Jones, you got Najee Harris, Rico Dowdle, Ty Johnson, and then Cam Akers. So I maybe can see the Broncos taking a swing at one of them, but look for the draft. And Kathy, you're spot on here. I've heard that the Broncos do like Omarion Hampton. And I like Trevion Henderson too. Trevion Henderson's a baller.
Oh yeah.
And in my opinion, Dylan, he's better than Quinshon Junkins. Just me personally. Now I like Quinshon Junkins too, but I think what Henderson provides is just a little bit better, at least for me. But yeah, I definitely see these are some names here, Kathy, the Broncos may target, but I think that position needs to be addressed and probably near the top of their list to address in the offseason.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just abysmal from the running back group. Obviously, talent played a part. Sean Payton didn't really try and run the ball a whole lot. I mean, there was games where he stuck to it in the first half, and then he absolutely just was like, we don't need to do that anymore. Let me have Bo throw 40 times a freaking game.
Yeah.
Some important stats I want to throw at you. So, rushing yards and touchdowns when you include Bo Nix is not, you got 1,908 yards, which was 16th in the NFL, and 12 touchdowns, which is 24th. So pretty bad. If you take out Bo Nix, you got 1,478 yards, which is 31st in the league, and then 8 touchdowns, which is tied for third worst. Absolutely abysmal. And like you mentioned, you're going to be adding multiple running backs. I don't think Javante's gone, obviously. Jaleel is not scaring you away from any other options. Like you mentioned, there's been flashes, but he's not going to keep you from upgrading that position. And Estime, I don't even know what to think. Like, is this the Troy Franklin treatment from last year? Kind of sucks, but you can go in the free agency, like you mentioned. Najee Harris is good back. I think the Broncos will want to bring in a veteran back. But if you go in the draft and say there's even 2 guys you like, go ahead. I mean, it's a really good draft class.
It's a deep class. Yeah.
Yeah, and I see Rodney brings up Nick Singleton. He actually is going back to college, unfortunately.
Both of them. Allen and Singleton are going back.
Which is a bummer. I was a big fan of Nick Singleton. So
I tweeted that, Dylan, and I was so mad because that was one of my sleepers when it came to running back. I was like, ooh, this is one that the Broncos need to target.
Absolutely, man.
And he's a baller.
He really is.
And he can do everything well. Like he can pass protect, he can catch it well. Running style. Yeah, he's a versatile back that can definitely help this offense.
Exactly. And there's just, like you mentioned, Travion Henderson. You got Amarian Hampton, Caleb Johnson, Jaden Blue, I think, is a underrated option out of Texas. Devin Neal from Kansas, and a name I've been seeing thrown around a lot. I'm going to have to look at him a little more. I've seen a little bit. Lakeem Allen from Syracuse.
I was going to mention him.
Okay. Yes.
I was going to bring him. I saw, not the country, but I did see some highlights of him, and that dude, I should have tweeted. I was thinking, I said it out loud. I was like, this is a Sean Payton guy. LaQueen Allen's a Sean Payton guy. If you guys haven't watched this tape, please go. He's very good runner, very good pass catcher. Like, he really reminds you of like that Kamara type of back. And that's all up Sean Payton's alley. So LaQueen Allen is definitely a name to keep an eye out for.
Absolutely. And one more thing I just want to add, like, going into the draft as well, you don't have to pigeonhole yourself at what type of running back you want to get, because you could get a power back. You can get, like you mentioned, passing, receiving. You need all of it.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be too picky there. So hopefully we come away with a couple backs through free agency and the draft. We're definitely getting at least one solid running back.
Yes, definitely. All righty, let's see who else we have. Anything? Thank you for coming in. Kathy and Rodney on that. Rodney coming back in says, if Warren and Genty are there at 20, who would you guys take? I'm taking Ashton Genty.
Absolutely.
I've been following him ever since he was at Boise State, and just he's an all-around back. I mean, that's why he's graded the number 1 back in the class. I mean, he can do it all. Running style, runs hard, can catch it out of the backfield. Better than average blocker. The guy is just how he fights through tackles. He just fights through and tries to gain those extra yards. And so if just speaking for me, if I were GM and or Sean Payton, that would be my pick. But Rodney, I really don't see 2 things why I don't think Genty's going to come to the Broncos. First of all, he won't be there. And then secondly, you kind of heard Sean Payton's philosophy on the running back group, because Genty's more of, one back. Like, he's your every down back. So kind of the shades of your Derrick Henry, your Saquon Barkley. And that's not how Sean wants to run his offense. So I don't see Genty being, the dude for Denver, just because of what you heard from Sean in that end of the season presser. But I just think, given my preference and where this team is at the running back position, that would be a home run hit um, for me. So
I'm in complete agreement. I absolutely love Ashton Genty. He would make this offense so much more dynamic, even like just purely running the ball. I mean, you see how he was at Ohio State, Boise State, and he was that team. Now put him behind the Broncos offensive line. Are you kidding me? I mean, it's something the Broncos don't have, and you add that dimension that was missing from this team. How many more teams do you beat? You could beat the teams down. You get to the second half, Ashton Genty's blowing up through their secondary. He's like Derrick Henry, like you mentioned. Once that second half rolls around, defenders are getting tired of tackling. He's going to break open a game. And this is not disparaging Warren at all, but I just think Genty's the obvious upgrade there because and yes, there's a lot of depth in this running back class, but if you can get the best one and he's all around good, not just running the ball, I say go for that. I know you mentioned Sean doesn't really do the bell cow thing. I don't grab him and grab a smaller receiving back or something. I don't care. Get him on this team, but like you mentioned, Ron, probably not going to be there at 20. Certainly not going to be there at 20. So, we'll have to wait and see on that. But I think Genty's got to be the pick there.
yeah, yes, most definitely. Yeah, I think Genty's. I'm hearing probably be Dallas. So you probably go to the Cowboys. And then depending on who the Dallas Cowboys get as their head coach, more like it might be a Kellen Moore return to Dallas, and you know how he likes to use the running game. So Genty would fall right into that. So, but we will see. Thank you, Rodney, for coming in. Let's see who else. We got Mr. Phil McLaughlin coming in from Facebook. Thank you, Phil. It's always good to see you, my man. He says, "Good evening, Ron and Dylan. Let's face it, we need improvement at running back, tight end, wide receiver for sure, but we need depth everywhere." Yes. Depth is also, a need across all the position groups. I would say a little bit more depth. I think if I were to prioritize it, Dylan, as far as the depth, let me see. I would probably put safety depth up there.
Mhm.
And I know safety is probably a position of need now because what you saw from PJ Locke, you just can't you can't move forward with what you saw from that performance. So yeah, safety, inside linebacker, maybe some upgrades on and definitely defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
That interior defensive line is one for sure. So I would say those four certain. But yeah, Phil, you're right across the board. Definitely needs to be looked at everywhere. And I'm pretty sure they'll address all that in later rounds of the draft.
Yeah, thanks for hopping in, Phil. And you're absolutely right. Just all I see there, 1, 2, 3, running back, tight end, wide receiver. You need offensive weapons. Just straight up. I mean, just get whether it's tight end, running back, which I would prioritize over wide receiver. I think we have some, well, not perfect. We have a good looking receiver core. I like what Mims is doing. He was coming on towards the end of the season, and Sutton is really good. I think he's like the best two you could ever have, right? But you don't have that game breaker like Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, which fair. Not many of those guys out there. But you definitely want to upgrade there. Just skill position players in general. This offense needs to get more dynamic, and so you're able to make more plays and bust games open and not be so one-dimensional.
Yes, most definitely. Most definitely. All righty. Let's see what else we have in the chat. And then again, Phil, thank you for coming in with that. Got Roy coming back in. Thank you, Roy. He says, Cam Scatterboo. Only thing wrong with him is that he's short. Dylan, what are your thoughts on Scatterboo?
Hey, man, tiny but mighty. I mean, the dude breaks. The guy breaks tackles, and he's a hard runner, hard worker as well. I mean, he was the whole team in that Arizona State game. I was really, really pulling for him to get that upset. Very, very versatile. He can catch the ball as well, throw it too. So hey, maybe that's another Taysom Hill like option for Sean Payton, but I absolutely wouldn't mind him in Denver. Like, you know, lower center of gravity, so that helps him break more tackles as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the kid. You know, he shows heart. Um, yeah, so he's very determined and he's a good runner. I mean, you know, his running style is, you know, I guess a little unique.
Yeah.
But, you know, he does have the knack kind of like a bowling ball. Like he just, you know, gets off of people, breaks those tackles, fights for those extra yards. So, I mean, you know, if I wouldn't mind, you know, in the later round, if he's there, the Broncos, um, you know, uh, take him. Let's see what happens. It's the worst you can do, right? You need weapons. You just need, you know, more weapons at the running back position to help this run game out. So I'm definitely okay with them, Roy.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for coming in again. And we got Mr. Michael Ronquillo coming in. Thank you, Mike. It's always good to see you, my guy, in the chat. Says, good evening, Ron and Dylan on the Orange and Blue View. Go Bo Broncos. Thank you, Mike, for coming
Thank.
in. It's always good to see you.
Always good to see you, Michael. Thanks for hopping in, buddy.
All right. I want to grab another comment because it gets into one of my position groups, which is inside linebacker. That's another need for sure. And I believe it was Rodney here with the question. Um, I do hope we address the inside linebacker position, Dotson, Greenlaw, or Bond. So Rodney, I'll get to that and put a little bit of a fork in it, but yeah, I would say the inside linebacker group, Dylan, you know, minus Alex Singleton, I'm okay with moving on from Barton. I'm okay with moving on from Sternard. I know some people wouldn't mind Barton back. No, I both of them they can go because you saw in some of those games where like in coverage they were just god awful and they were missing. They couldn't tackle. You saw that especially in the Chargers game. That last Chargers game was the one, and so you need inside linebackers that are very good in coverage. And at that point of attack, when that running back is coming downhill, they don't whiff on tackles, and you see that more from those two um, than not. And so, as far as the position itself, Rodney, to answer your question, the last two I'll be interested in. Um, I would say if I had to choose one, um, I think Bond might be a little bit more reasonable coming to Denver
Mhm.
than Greenlaw. I have a feeling. Well, I don't know with the 49ers. I know they still have to pay Purdy, and I think they have a few other people there to look at as far as contracts. But Greenlaw is definitely in the realm of the possible. But I do think, given how the Philadelphia Eagles inside linebacker core has developed, um, I think Philly would be okay moving on from Bond, and I think Bond can definitely be a realistic destination for Denver.
I'm in total agreement there. I love how Bond has played this season, moving to inside linebacker. Uh, Helps when Vic Fangio is your defensive coordinator.
Yep.
But just what he's done on his own is absolutely insane, and he's made a pretty big market for himself this offseason.
Hmm.
And the Broncos do have some money to spend, so hey, maybe throw some money that way. We've not really done that in the past. You get stuck with bums. I'm not going to say Jags. They're bums. Justin Sternad, he looked pretty good when he first came in. Absolutely fell off a cliff. Cody Barton, outside of a couple splash plays, has been abysmal. It really makes me miss Josie Jewell. He
Yes.
wasn't
Yes.
like some superstar, but he would consistently in the spot to make a tackle, and he would make those tackles. I mean, he was tackling Derrick Henry for God's sake. Um, but I'm still going to be mad about that. I don't care. Um, but yeah, it's absolutely abysmal. There's just so much arm tackling, And
Yes.
you never see a linebacker of ours taking someone down by themselves, whether it's a receiver, tight end, running back, I don't care. They just can't get guys down, and it's
Right.
just awful to see. And like you mentioned in coverage, most of the time I'm seeing the back of Barton's helmet. He doesn't know what the hell's going on.
Right. He looks lost. He looks
Exactly.
lost. And then
Yeah.
to your point on the tackling, like you said, the arm tackle, they're whiffing. I don't see anyone wrapping up anyone or trying to bring him down. It's just, oh, let me try to extend. Hopefully he can come down. And you just, yeah, it has to be upgraded. You can't walk into next season with that inside linebacker group because it's going to be the same results. I mean, it's not. They're just not good. So yeah, again, Rodney. I think again, I like both Greenlaw and Bond. I just think more realistically, Bond is an option for Denver, but I would prefer Greenlaw just because that dude's an animal.
He got that competitive fire in him, man.
Yes,
We need
yes,
that. We need that on this defense.
yes. That guy is aggressive. Doesn't really miss a tackle. Like when I watched that 49ers defense, that pairing of himself and Fred Warner, that might be the best duo when it comes to the inside linebacker group in the NFL. Might be.
Easily.
So yeah. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But thank you, my guy, for coming in with that. Okay, let's do a time check here. We're at 41 minutes. Okay, we got a few more minutes. So if you guys have any last minute questions, comments, get them in the chat. All right, let's see who else. Hang on, guys. Again, no Scott tonight, guys. So we're just kind of manning the chat here. I did see one about I think it was one about T. Higgins and free agency. So while I look for that, Dylan, there it goes. Thank you. Like I said, the chat moves fast, guys. So again, we're just trying to get through it. So Todd, thank you, Todd, for coming in. Says I would get T. Higgins in free agency. Thoughts on that, Dylan?
I think he's a Charger or a Patriot. As much as I would love to have T. Higgins here, he's a great jump ball guy. We kind of saw that a couple weeks ago. How good he is as a receiver. It would be a dream. I think it'd be great to have him aboard, especially this wide receiver core. You have Sutton on one side, Mims tearing up the middle, and then T. Higgins on the other side. It'd be a very formidable group. I just think he outprices himself. I don't know if we want to spend that much on a T. Higgins, especially free agency. I wrote up an article on it, and you could check it out at milehighhuddle.com, but about George Payton wants to be measured in free agency like he has been the past few years. You don't want to overspend on one dude, right? You're in free agency. You want to kind of cover up the bigger holes that you have on your team. Maybe not necessarily get an all-star there, but you want to try and plug up some holes so when you go into the draft, you can kind of go best player available, right? And while I would love to have T. Higgins on this team, I just don't see it happening. I think he's probably either a Patriot or, unfortunately, a Charger.
Yeah, I go back and forth on this one because on one hand, I mean, this guy is he's just such a talented wide receiver. I mean, I was watching him since his days at Clemson. And what he was able to do in the league has just been nothing short of amazing. So the talent is there. Big catch radius can, get open down the field. It's good. And to have that weapon on this Broncos offense would be amazing. But I think this is not going to happen, Todd, just for two reasons. And Dylan already alluded to one. I just think it's going to be too expensive. Now, the Broncos will have money to play with, but, like you said, George Payton, they want to be measured. They're not trying to be out here spending money like crazy, being all frivolous with the money. And what also goes into that is health. That's part of being measured and evaluating a player's health. And T. Higgins has been injured a lot in his playing career. And so I don't see the Broncos going out here and giving T. Higgins what he'd probably be wanting 28 million a year, somewhere around there. Maybe even 30. So having that contract being for T. Higgins when he just can't stay healthy. Um, and so I think the more realistic option, or there are a few, but I think as far as like the big names in free agency, Todd, I think a more realistic option for Denver is Chris Godwin. Um, I think Chris now coming off of injury himself, but not nearly as injured as T Higgins is. And the guy can get open. And just imagine, if there wasn't a Mike Evans on, the Bucks offense, what Chris Godwin's numbers would be then. So this offense with the Cortland Sutton, Chris Godwin, Mims, Vele, Franklin, um, it would be good. A few other names out there that they might consider. Um, Amari Cooper, although he's getting a little long in the tooth. I think he's about to be 31. And then possibly Darius Slayton. From the Giants. That could be kind of one of those mid-tier receivers that the Broncos looking to getting. But yeah, T Higgins, love the guy, love the player, but again, given that health and what he's demanding, I just don't see the Broncos doing it, unfortunately. All righty. Thank you for coming in with that, Todd. And then we got Max. We coming in. Thank you. The super chat. Evening, gents. Great show tonight. Go Broncos. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming in, Max. It's good to see you. And I see here Mike Ronquillo. I know this is the dream.
Yep.
Thank you, Mike. Garrett Wilson from the Jets. That would be, I would love it. I would love it. And Dylan, even if it means you give up this year's first round, I'm actually okay with that. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm okay with giving up this year's first rounder for Garrett Wilson. I am. I mean, I get kind of where the Broncos are, that they want a lot of. I mean, well, Garrett Wilson's young, but I think they kind of want to draft, develop, their own guys. So they're probably going to be looking mostly in the draft for that. But to have a former offensive rookie of the year, and I believe, did he have 1,000-yard season? Did he have one this year? I know he's had one a few times.
Let me take a look here.
Okay. But while Dylan
Yep.
looks that up, so he's had one up, was it this year? Or did
This
he have
year
one
he had 1,100 yards and 7 touchdowns.
Okay. Yeah. So again, to have that on this Broncos offense, yeah, that guy's a player. Those Ohio State receivers are good, man.
Oh yeah.
I know Marvin Harrison is. I mean, he was good. I mean, I know this year is a little weird with him with Kyler Murray, and I know that should continue to pick up. But even if the Broncos get Emeka Ibuka first round, let's say, I'm okay with that, because I think Emeka Ibuka is one of those receivers, Dylan, where he's kind of like that complete receiver. He can do a lot of things in the middle of the field. He can go deep. The route running is just all world. He can block. So again, that's what those Ohio State receivers are. They're very talented. At the wide receiver position. But yeah, Mike, I'm right there with you. I would love it if the Broncos get Garrett Wilson. Hell of a football player.
Absolutely. And like you mentioned, he's young. He's only 24 years old. I mean, and if you're gonna go and get a playmaker anyway, why not get a known commodity with your first round pick if that's the way they want to go, right? And Garrett Wilson has been amazing. He makes these circus catches, which I can't even believe. I mean, he's just would make this offense so much more dynamic. And just to kind of squash on my own dreams here a little bit, it seems like Devontae Adams might be departing,
Yeah.
so they might be a little more inclined to keep him.
Keep 'em.
But you never know. Never say never. I would absolutely love Garrett Wilson on this offense.
Yeah. Yeah. Most definitely. But again, thank you, Mike, for coming in, my guy, with that comment. And then let's see. We got Mr. Phil McLaughlin coming back in. Thank you, Phil. He says, is there one position that you would rather buy than draft? Safety.
Mm-hmm.
For me. Although if Malachi Starks falls to Denver, I'm getting him.
Yeah,
I'll put that aside. But yeah, Phil. Safety, I would rather buy. The dude I'm looking for the Broncos to target is Javon Holland from Miami.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's one position that I think with that specific target and that fit, I think that would help out the Broncos, in my opinion.
Oh, tremendously. And just going back to like inside linebacker, I think that's a place I'd like to spend because you got Bond out there, you got Dre Greenlaw, two options that I absolutely love for this team. But like you mentioned, safety. I mean, that Malachi Starks guy is pretty good. I'd have a hard time skipping past. I know. We need tight end, we need receiver, we need running back. But this guy's a weapon. Think of what Kyle Hamilton does for the Baltimore Ravens.
He can be better than.
He has the potential to be better. Absolutely lock down that secondary, but that is also somewhere I'd probably be looking to spend. Hey, I know Justin Simmons had a down year with the Atlanta Falcons. I think that was more coaching and what was happening in front of him, more so than him. But there'll be a few options out there at safety for free agency, so I could see them putting some money towards that as well.
Yeah. I think for me, anybody from Georgia that plays defense, if they're there at 20, I'm actually open to taking them. And it's not being biased, but they're just hella football players.
They're just that good.
Jalen Walker, Mikael Williams, any of them. Like they are just so talented. Like usually how you see them come off the ball, Dylan, and how the Broncos can use that, especially with I can imagine Jalen Walker in some of those packages, just rushing the quarterback, coming in on some of those blitzes. So I wouldn't be mad. Even defensive line, if like a Kenneth Grant or someone, possibly. I'm okay with that. Again, it's best player available, at a position of need. And again, if you do well free agency, kind of plug in some holes, you can go into that draft with that in mind. So
absolutely
kind of leaves it open. But again, thank you, Phil, for coming in with that. We appreciate it. All right, let's see who else we have here. We're 50 minutes, but going to wrap these up here shortly. Glenn Ashley coming in. Thank you from Facebook. Says, good afternoon, Dylan, Ron, and Broncos country. In a lot of mocks, I see Warren or Loveland available as well as Ibuka. I prefer trading back in to get two of these than free agents like Higgins. Okay. Good point. I think if you trade back, Glenn, two of them may not be there. You may get Loveland. Loveland may still be there depending on how far you trade back. I think when I looked at the PFF mock, Loveland is the number 28th player ranked overall. I think Warren is like 13th, and Ibuka is somewhere in the high teens. So yeah, depending on how far you trade back, you might. But again, I'm still okay with the trade back, and if you can, pick up, extra capital and use that toward, let's say a Dylan Sampson or a Gunnar Helm, in the second round with one of your picks, I'm okay with that. It really just depends on, kind of how the board is falling. And if you do think indeed that one of those players will be there, and then how far you trade back as well.
Yeah, and with the depth there is at especially tight end and running back, there's a lot of interior defensive linemen as well. Trading back could be a good thing. I mean, and that's how you could go grab 2 running backs, grab maybe a couple tight ends, a couple receivers, because there's going to be some positions that you're going to want to double up on. Just more darts at the board, like George Payton likes to say. But as we know, Sean Payton, he likes to be a little more aggressive. So we'll see how that works out. But yeah, I could see Loveland still being there in a trade back. Warren's going to be gone.
Yeah.
Too much of a beast. And maybe Mekabuka's there, but I don't know. I do like him a great deal as well. Like you mentioned earlier, he's going to get open. He's going to catch the ball. He's just going to find that open space. So, and that's something that the Broncos desperately need is a wide receiver that could get some freaking separation.
Oh yeah, and he's clarifying. Sorry about that, Ash. He says trade back in, so not trading down, but trading back into the first. Yeah, again, it and use 2026 for maybe. Again, it really does depend on who's still there, who you're trading with, things of that nature. But I'm open to it. I'm open to it. You just have to kind of see what see what see what it is with the other teams. But again, thank you for coming in. All right, guys. Well, that concludes our episode for tonight. We greatly appreciate all of you guys tuning in to tonight's episode. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you have not done so already, and Rodney Garcia, thank you. Says great show tonight, Ron and Dylan. Go Broncos. Thank you, Rodney. And again, thank you for coming in with all of your questions, comments. We appreciate you, my guy. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Always love seeing you, Rodney.
Yes. And if you guys have not done so, make sure
another
one from Mr. Mike Ronquillo. Thank you.
Oops.
Great show tonight, Ron and Dylan on Orange and Blue View. Go Bull Broncos. Thank you, Mike, for coming in. We greatly appreciate you as always, my guy. If you have not done so already, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like and share across all of the platforms. We greatly appreciate it. And if you have not done so already, make sure you follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter. I am at Ron White NFL, and my partner here is at Dylan Von Arks MHH. Before we get out of here tonight, Dylan has a few people to shout out who contributed, and I'll let Dylan take from here.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for hopping in on another Saturday night. We capped out at 151 people. It's looking like right now. Absolutely amazing that you guys would come in here and give us your time. I think you guys like us a little bit. I'm cool with that. So always good to see that. But I want to show a little extra love to those who were our Super Chat superstars for tonight. David McGilrath, as always, starting us off. Phil McLaughlin came in 2 different times for us. Michael Ronquillo twice as well. Rodney Garcia and Max Rude. Thank you guys so much for coming in and showing us a little extra love. We couldn't do this without you, and it's greatly appreciated. And if we didn't get to some of your questions here tonight, go down to the comments once the VOD uploads, and we'll search through there and talk with you for a little bit.
Yes, most definitely. And guys, now we're in off-season mode. There's going to be plenty of free agent talk, draft talk. So, again, please reach out to us on Twitter. We'd be more than happy to give our feedback, opinions on all of the free agent and draft process. This is one of my favorite times of the season, Dylan. Off-season, watching videos and looking at draft process. So it should be exciting. But again, guys, thank you all for tuning in tonight. And I hope you guys have a great evening. Go Broncos.
Go Broncos.